السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We seek His forgiveness, we ask for His guidance, and we pray that He includes us in His rahmah in the dunya and akhirah, inshallah. أما بعد، أحييكم بتحية الإسلام. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Not too long ago, we finished fasting the month of Ramadan, the most important month of our Taraweeh, our Qiyam, our good deeds, and that He gives us the chance to do it again next year, inshallah. But what makes Ramadan more important and more special than any other month of the year is the fact that it was during the month of Ramadan that the Quran was revealed. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. Ramadan and the Quran are inseparable. They've been bound together from the very beginning, from the very origin of our deen. And because of that, during the month of Ramadan, we develop a closer relationship to the Quran. We reach for it more often, we carry it around, we hold it. And this relationship for many of us is mostly enjoyed during Ramadan. Many of us, we don't develop this closeness to the Quran outside of Ramadan. But as a result, our focus becomes too much on reciting the Quran, reading it again, finishing it, and trying to read it one more time. The focus becomes too much on reading the letters of the Quran and not so much on the meaning. And we have to remember that the Quran was not just meant to be read and recited. The Quran was meant to be lived, its principles to be practiced, its knowledge to be applied. Remember that the Quran was revealed over a period of 20 years to Sayyidina Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And this time frame this span of time allowed for the Prophet and his followers the opportunity to fully engage in relation. They had that chance, right? And I think it's part of the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He did not reveal the Quran in a short period of time. The idea was to reveal small pieces over a period of 20 years so that the students can learn each lesson before receiving a new one. They had enough time from one revelation to the next to fully implement the knowledge that was delivered, the knowledge that was revealed. And as a community, I think our focus, even though we do not have the luxury that the early Muslims had, we still should not lose that idea. The idea that the Quran was not only meant to be recited, but in fact it was meant to be implemented. As the school principle of National International, and you're starting on Juz al-Tabarak, each idea was meant to be practiced. Right? In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَقُلْ اعْمَلُوا فَسَيَرَ اللَّهُ عَمَلَكُمْ. Take action, and Allah will see your actions. وَرَسُولِهِ وَالْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَسُتُرَدُّونَ إِلَى عَالِمِ الْغَيْبِ وَالشَّهَادَةِ فَيُنَبِّئُكُم بِمَا كُنتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. That Allah will see your actions, the Prophet and the believers will see your actions, and eventually you will come back to your Lord and He will tell you about what you did. Right? Take for instance the character of the Prophet ﷺ. The character of the Prophet in relation to implementation and action. If people ask you about the Prophet ﷺ, many of us would talk about his manners with others. Some would talk about his leadership. I personally like to study and read about his teaching style and how he was a teacher, his role as a teacher. But no description is more beautiful than the description that Sittna Aisha provided. When they asked her about the Prophet ﷺ, her response was one sentence. It was short, but it was so comprehensive, so beautiful. She said, كَانَ خُلُقُهُ الْقُرْآنِ. كَانَ خُلُقُهُ الْقُرْآنِ means his entire khuluq, his entire being was the Quran. Right? The way he talked, the way he walked, the way he addressed people. Right? His entire khuluq was the Quran. It's as if he was a walking and talking Quran, so to speak. Right? What he stood for, what he spoke, how he spoke. Right? And it makes sense because Sayyidina Muhammad was not only tasked with being a messenger. It's not like he was just the messenger and that's it. No. He be a living example of the very lessons he was revealing, of the very messages he was sharing with his companions. Right? But there's still something more significant and more powerful about the words of Aisha, and that is what I wanted to share with you today, inshallah. The most powerful thing about what Aisha said was that she said these words about her husband. She was describing her husband first and foremost. And this is powerful because that's how she related to him. Yes, he was a prophet ﷺ. He was a statesman, he was a teacher, he was a community advocate. All are true, but for her, for the lady of the house, she was talking about her husband. Right? She was talking about her partner, the one with whom she woke up in the morning, the one with whom she had breakfast, the one whom she loved. And this is powerful because it points to the amazing idea that Sayyidina Muhammad ﷺ was a great man, not just publicly, but also in his private affairs. He was a great man not just outside of his house, but also inside his house. Right? And I think sometimes we can be great men and women with others. We can have a great social life outside of our house, but we still have to work on our relationships and our khuluq inside of our house, and specifically within our families. Within our families. The Prophet ﷺ, when he described his relationship to his families, he used the word balal. And balal means moisture. right? And the reason he used this word is to indicate that you cannot, if you let something go, it will eventually crack and break and fall apart. So he described his relationship to his family as with the word balad, right? He always had to make it damp and moist, right? And not dry and cold, so to speak. Right? And yet, unfortunately, I've lived in communities, subhanAllah, where problems within families had turned into crises and tragedies. The lack of communication, the lack of resolve, the lack of forgiveness had given way to violence and in some instances even death. Brothers and sisters, boycotting each other, husbands and wives conspiring against one another. There was child abuse, there was domestic violence, and the list goes on. Years upon years of bitterness and enmity. Right? And yet, if you visited these communities, everything seems fine in the private sphere, in the public sphere, I mean. Everything seemed fine in the public sphere, but behind closed doors, families were in deep waters. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He describes about families in the Quran, the description is so amazing in the Quran. Right? And it's so important. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions families in the Quran, do you know where He places families? He mentions 2 ayat back to back. And those 2 ayat are signs. He's sharing with us signs about His existence. He says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ومن آياته أن خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل المودة والرحمة إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون. And he says, from He created for you spouses so that you may go home and find tranquility with them. Right? He placed between you affection and mercy. Indeed, there are signs for those who give this thought. The ayah immediately after that, the verse immediately after that, he says, خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف ألسنتكم وألوانكم إن في ذلك لآيات للعالمين. He says, and from His signs, the creation of the heavens and the earth. The sign of family, my dear brothers and sisters, is as great a sign for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the creation of the heavens and the earth. These 2 signs are juxtaposed next to each other in the holy book of the Quran. Right? And this is important because we want to go home and find sukoon. Right? We want to find that tranquility in our homes. Because when we are comfortable in our homes, and there's a sense of in our homes, that even can translate to spiritual peace, I believe. And maybe that's where the wisdom stems from. Recently, Sheikh Hasib Noor, a Sheikh that I've known for a while, he told me that the most difficult hadith that he encountered 11 years in Medina. The most difficult hadith was when the Prophet ﷺ stood in front of his companions. So I asked him, why is that so difficult? And he said, you have to understand that Rasul ﷺ was the busiest man alive. He ran a nation. Everybody went to him. Everybody went to him with their problems and with their questions and needed answers and needed guidance. From the poor and hungry people who knocked on his door and told him, we don't have anything to eat, to the mentally ill woman who went to him and he told her, find me anywhere in Medina, come to me and I will help you. Everybody went to him. And above all this, on top of all that he did, he still said, the best of you are the best to their families. Think of all the Sahaba that were standing there. Khalid ibn al-Walid, Umar ibn al-Khattab. Think of Abu Bakr who stood in front of Al-Kaaba and was beaten over and over again, beaten down to a pulp, standing for Islam. Think of Umar ibn al-Khattab who, when he accepted Islam, until sunset, he was fighting off people. Uthman ibn Affan, at his death, he was stabbed 9 times because people didn't think he deserved the title. Think of all the people that stood in front of him and all the greatness that stood in front of him. And he still said, خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِهِ. The best of you are the best to their families and the best to their wives. He didn't say the best of you are the ones who fight Islamophobia, or the best of you are the ones who fight, bigotry and hate and do interfaith work. And, even though those are great things, but he still said, the best of you, خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِهِ. And we have to understand that if we neglect this idea, things can begin to crumble and fall apart. If we neglect a bicycle sitting in our basement, it will gather dust and begin to rust and begin to fall apart. And so do relationships with family members. They can also begin to fall apart. One time, the Prophet ﷺ, he was approached by a number of women from Medina, complaining to him about the abuse they received from their husbands. Right? According to some accounts, 70 women approached him and complained that they were getting beat by their husbands. So at that moment, the Prophet ﷺ told Bilal to make the call. Make a call people to the masjid. We have a meeting, because the Prophet realized that this is not just an individual problem, it's a community-wide problem, and he had to address it at a community level. So Bilal called the people to the masjid, and the Prophet ﷺ addressed it head on. And he called out the behaviors, he called out the actions, and he said that if you are doing this, you are not acting within the folds of Islam. In other words, Muslims do not act like this. Muslims, my followers, my people, do not act like this. And the message was clear. خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِهِ. The Prophet said, he said, there is no person whom Allah people to, and they fail to care, except that they will never smell the fragrance of Jannah. This is a hadith in Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim. No person who has been people to take care of them, and he fails to, except that he will not smell of Jannah. The reason Rasul ﷺ said that كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. He is a shepherd, and he asks, heard. Recognize if acceptable. I tell my that friendly and with people, and then you go down in the faces of your mothers. Right? Prophet ﷺ is charity, and who is deserving of than your? We cannot go to as men and women and be cool and friendly with everyone else and relationships with everyone, and then go back home. And the message gets to the bottom of what to all these is our kids about the ways of the Quran. I practice them at Rasul alayhi many things from conflict, our anger, neighbors, lessons that the Prophet is a hadith. But we have to start teaching to our kids, to start those akhlaq in practice. For instance, the Prophet ﷺ said, a place in the high highest place in Jannah for a person who gives up an argument, you're right. Again, place in Jannah for the person who abandons an argument even when they know right. Imagine implementing this with our spouse. Right? Imagine the amount of heartache and bitterness and rancor that can be avoided. The Prophet ﷺ was also human, and he got into arguments with his wives, not just one. For instance, after getting into a disagreement with Hafsa radiallahu anha, and Hafsa was the daughter of Umar ibn Khattab. Right? After getting into a disagreement with Hafsa, the Prophet said, "Come back to the house for a month." He pledged he will not enter the house for a whole month, and he went. Today we might say that he went and slept on the couch, right? And he went and slept, and where was his couch? His couch was right at the house of Aisha, and it was a small shed. His bed out of straw, and his pillow, animal skin, leaves. Was the bread that was the bed of the Prophet. And he went, of course, about this. He went first. He walked in, he told her, "Ya Hafsa, I heard that the Prophet, people are saying coming back to his house. What's going on?" And mashallah, Hafsa was the most righteous of the Prophet's wives. The Prophet ﷺ married her not for her lineage, not for her, but simply not for her beauty, but simply for her iman, for her righteousness. Hafsa didn't say a word to her father. As a righteous thing, she said, it's nothing. Also, his father, he didn't make a scene. He didn't tell her, "How dare you make it difficult or be difficult with the Prophet." He just poked her. He poked her and he told her, don't go about disappointing the Prophet. And that's all it was. It was a poke. And then Al-Khattab gathered his thawb and he went to see the Prophet. Similarly, he didn't barge in and make and tell the Prophet, "How dare you talk to my wife like this," and then spend the next 20 years not talking to him and treat each other with passive aggressiveness on the dinner table. Right? No, he actually asked for permission to enter. He asked 3 times. And after the 3rd time, the Prophet ﷺ allowed him to enter. And when Umar walked in and he saw how the Prophet was sleeping on the dry leaves and the animal skin and the straw and the he started to cry. The most powerful man at the time. And he told the Prophet, "Ya Rasulullah, I've seen the kings of Rome and Persia sleep on silk beds. And how can you be patient? You deserve better." And the Prophet responded to him and taught all. ألا ترضى يا عمر ولنا في الآخرة. All he said, "I'm content, I'm satisfied that they have this love, they have this world, and we have it in the Akhirah." And at that moment, Umar, because he understood what and you have to understand, this is all the context of a agreement with his wife. But Umar understood that the Prophet was telling him, even this will come to pass. Even this disagreement is we will go back to treating each other with mawadda and rahmah. This is nothing to be worried about. Never even discussed what had happened with Hafsa. Umar was response. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us implement the akhlaq of the Rasul subhanahu wa ta'ala in our private lives. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر لي ولكم فاستغفروه إن الله غفور رحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين. The message of this khutbah, my dear brothers and sisters, is that our families come first. Right? They are most deserving of our mercy and of our good manners. If we don't begin implementing akhlaq of Quran and the khuluq of Rasul at home, this could lead to the degradation of our children. Young children, without righteous caregivers, without righteous role models, threaten the very fabric of our moral code, of everything that we deem important and pure and beautiful. If our children are not encountering good relationships at home, right, they're only going to mimic what they see. If they're not encountering an akhlaq between the mother and the father, then where else would they encounter it? Right? And if we don't begin teaching our children, yes, at home and in schools, especially Islamic schools, right, then we are allowing for the degradation of our moral code within our children. And if that happens, we have to brace ourselves for the degradation of our communities. Education is a huge part of the solution to our problems. Our school, alhamdulillah, teaches mu'amala. There's a huge focus every day on how to treat one another. We have compassion and conscience and control as the main values that underlie everything that we do. Right? It's all over our walls. Teachers talk about it all the time, and it's all rooted in the akhlaq of the Prophet ﷺ. And I will end with this, inshallah. Our Prophet ﷺ once said, he said that every parent will come on the day of judgment and their children will hold them by the throat. Their children will hold them by the throat. Did you teach them this? Did you teach me this? Did you teach me these things, or did you not? Right? And this is something to take to heart. Right? Our roles as fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters have to be upheld and have to be within and aligned with the message and with the khuluq of the Prophet ﷺ. Right? It's not so much about understanding the letters of Islam. Right? It's more about the spirit of Islam. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين. اللهم ارزقنا الإخلاص بالقول والعمل. اللهم ارزقنا الإخلاص بالقول والعمل. اللهم ارزقنا فعل الخير وحسن الخلق. اللهم اجعلنا هاديين مهديين يا الله. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا. اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في فلسطين. اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في القدس وارفع الحصار عنهم ونجيهم يا الله وأصلح أحوالهم يا رب العالمين. اللهم أصلح إخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان، في السودان وفي كشمير وفي بورما وفي اليمن وفي أفغانستان وفي العراق وفي كل مكان يا رب العالمين. اللهم احقن دماءهم واشف مرضاهم وارحمهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وأقم الصلاة.